that I have 100+ participants, and I'm hoping that all of your students who already have an understanding of the criminal justice system in India, and I won't be going into that because the juvenile justice system in India itself is quite vast. I would like this session to be as interactive as possible. I don't want to continue speaking for a very long time. So I will just share my screen now. And as we go, I have a few questions to everyone as well. So as Ms. Preeti has already mentioned, I'm working as a project coordinator with Center for Child and the Law in the National Law School of India University. It is a specialized research center. It's a multidisciplinary center working on the issue of child rights and looking at the intersection of child rights and law. So before we start off with it, I would like to understand what you understand. I would like to get a feeling of what you understand when we say juvenile or a child. Who is a child according to you? Who is a
Child
child?
who is not an adult, somebody who is below the age of 18.
Okay, below the age of 18, very good. So, but do we have the uniform understanding of it in India? Do you know that?
No, I think it differs. So when we speak about labor law, again, when we are speaking about a juvenile and a child, so there's the age of 14 as well, and there's the age of 16 as well mentioned. So I think there's no uniformity as such.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Okay, so for the purposes of the juvenile justice system itself, juvenile means a child who is below the age of 18 years, belonging to any gender. Because the act is silent on that, we are going to interpret it as a child is any person below the age of 18 years, belonging to any gender, race, social class, etc. So what are the legislations in India with respect to children then? What all legislations do we have? I'm not looking at the Constitution of India or the provisions of the Constitution, but there are a few legislations in India specifically speaking of children. Can you name at least 3, anyone? One is, of course, the Juvenile Justice Care and Protection of Children Act of 2015. Apart from that,
may I try answering that, ma'am?
Yes, please.
Ma'am, with relation to juveniles, ma'am, along with the Juvenile Justice Act, ma'am, we've got the Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act.
Very good.
And there are various other such legislations, ma'am. There are rules and regulations under the same, ma'am, both juvenile justice as well as POCSO, ma'am.
Okay. So any other legislation anyone can think of?
Prohibition of child marriage.
Very good. So I've got 2. Is there one more?
Ma'am, may I answer?
Please.
Restraint of Child Marriage Act.
That's the same thing that your classmate or your colleague already answered. That's the Prohibition of Child Marriage Act. We don't have the Restraint of Child Marriage Act anymore. That was repealed.
Prohibiting from them to work.
That would be the Child Labor Act, you mean?
Yes, Child Labor
Act. Okay, wonderful. So we will just look at a few legislations. I've tried to divide them based on the survival and development as well as the protection aspect of it. So we have the Right of Children to Free and Compulsory Education Act of 2009 and the National Food Security Act of 2013. The first one, the RTE Act, is very specific to education and to children in the age group of 6 to 14, but the National Food Security Act also speaks of adults. Then we have a whole set of legislations and of course the delegated legislations under them, the rules, the policies and everything that deal with child protection. One is the POCSO Act that you've already mentioned. Then we have the Child and Adolescent Labor Prohibition and Regulation Act of 1986. We have the Immoral Traffic Prevention Act of 1956, then the JJ Act. Then we also have the Preconception and Prenatal Diagnostic Techniques Act of 1994. We have the Information Technology Act, provisions of it. Then we have the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act. So these are acts which try to look at offenses and gives punishments for it and all of that. Then we have the Commissions for Protection of Child Rights Act. I'm sure you would have heard about us having a Child Rights Commission in Karnataka. We have a National Child Rights Commission as well. So these commissions look at they are monitoring bodies for various legislations. It is very important for us to remember these acts because a child under the Juvenile Justice Act is also booked under, say, the IT Act, or is also booked under the SC/ST Atrocities Act, is booked under the PCPNDT Act. It's either going through, we will also try and understand what are the kinds of groups of children that the JJ Act deals with. And it is not just one act or two acts that the JJ Act deals with. It's everything, every act under the criminal justice system. If it's affecting children, then the JJ Act deals with it. Yeah. So as per the NCRB data, that is the National Crime Records Bureau, so these are the number of children, a total of 1,49,000 and odd cases were crimes against children. This is only for 1 year in 2021, which is almost a 16.2% increase from the cases in 2020. So the major heads, there are a lot more heads. We will take a look at it further. The major ones are under for kidnapping and abduction, and the POCSO cases are a majority of them. A small percentage, that is around 31,000 cases, have been registered against children during 2021, which is also an increase from 2020. So for the 31,000 and odd cases, we have 37,000 children who were apprehended, of which 32,000 were under the IPC, and 4,000 and odd children were apprehended under special and local laws. So we have every other act under special and local laws. We have the POCSO Act, we have ITPA, we have IT Act, and we have Child Labor Act, we have procuration for selling. All of that will be coming under the special and local laws. And majority of the children in conflict with law were in the age group of 16 to 18 years. When we speak about the transfer system, the preliminary assessment, we will see why this becomes very important. So this is a breakup of the cases that we have for crimes against children. So these are the number of incidences reported. A lot more are also unreported. So we always need to take the NCRB data with a pinch of salt, because this doesn't give the entire picture. So if you take a look at it, there's POCSO Act with 53,874 cases. So why do you think there are so many cases being committed against children, especially with regard to sexual abuse?
I feel they're helpless and hence the easy target.
Okay. So I would like to ask one question over here. Who can be sexually abused? Is it only girl children, or can it be boys and children belonging to other genders as well who can be abused?
Any gender can be sexually abused. So it's not necessarily that it's only a boy or a girl. Even a third gender can be abused. So abuse can be anything. Yeah, I mean, so, against any gender.
Why are children so vulnerable then to be abused? Don't we have enough protection mechanisms already in place societally? I'm not speaking about the legal system. Societally, don't we have protection mechanisms in place? Don't we have a very tight-knit family? Being in India, we have everything starts from the family, ends with the family. So we have such tight-knit families protecting children. So why are children still vulnerable to being sexually abused?
I think it's lack of the education that we give in terms of sexual education. We're not very open. The society still is very conservative in terms of giving the sexual education, or basically, yeah, even every parent would hesitate talking about what is appropriate touch in so recently this trend has been picked up, that parents have started talking to their kids about what is an appropriate touch, what is an inappropriate touch, or how what's right, what's wrong. But I think the society still stands very conservative in terms of teaching their kids on about all these inappropriate acts.
Okay, I would like to just throw in a statistic over here that a majority of sexual abuse cases that take place are from the perpetrators are usually family members or people who are known by the child and the family. They're not strangers. It's only 1 or 2% who are strangers. The rest, 98 to 99% of the perpetrators are from the families. So why do you think that is then? If it's lack of education, if it's lack of good touch, bad touch. So that's a very complicated answer to it, right? There's no one answer to it. There's the question itself is so complicated. And other thing that I would like to highlight over here is in the recent days, you would have seen, and I have also seen because we also work with boys in the government boys observation home in Bangalore. We've also seen that a lot of POXO cases are or of children entering into consensual relationships in the 16 to 18 age group. They're getting into consensual relationships, and cases are usually filed against the boys. So the boys are committing sexual atrocities or offenses, and the girls are victims in this manner, even though it's a consensual relationship. So you might have noticed recently there have been a lot of judicial interpretations taking place in this area that a consensual relationship cannot be booked under the POXO Act. The POXO Act is very specific to children who are actually vulnerable and not who are, entering into consensual relationships because of their age, because of the exposure that they have, and it's nothing wrong that they are doing it. Juveniles in conflict with law. So this is children in conflict with law. So we have so many cases being filed against children. So the majority of them are theft or committing hurt. So what happens in hurt when they are just two boys are fighting, or there is a group which is fighting with each other and there's hurt taking place, then those boys are booked under the IPC section relating to hurt. Then there's POXO. You can see 2,234 cases are filed against children themselves, and a majority of them are consensual relationships. Then I want to highlight that there's one on riots. There's 746 cases against children in riots. From personal experience, I've seen is that children are just in the wrong place at the wrong time. When a riot is taking place, when a communal fight is taking place, or when a gang war is taking place, children are just in the wrong place at that time, and they're picked up, and cases are filed against them, and they enter the system with it with no fault of theirs, just because they're mute spectators to the entire happenings. Then who is a child in need of care and protection? So this is very specifically given under the under the JJ Act itself, Section 2, Clause 14. It has a list of children who are in need of care and protection. So homeless child, we will see why this classification is done. And also we will try and look at the interlinking between these two groups of children, that is child in need of care and protection and child in conflict with law. So they are homeless, children engaged in labor or brought out from labor, children with parents or guardians who are abusive, neglectful, if they're threatening to the child, if they have killed a child or any other children in front of that child, a child suffering from terminal or incurable disease with no one there to look after them, a child who's unfit or incapacitated, a missing or a runaway child who's not a missing child who's not traceable, a runaway child who's again not traceable, who's more vulnerable to any of the other things, to be trafficked, to be put into labor, to be sexually exploited, to be put into commercial sexual exploitation and other things, vulnerable to be inducted into drug abuse or trafficking, affected by armed conflict, civil unrest, or natural calamity if the child has lost one or both parents. A very recent example of this would be children losing parents due to COVID-19. Children who were left orphaned or with single parents due to the pandemic, they were also considered to be children in need of care and protection, or who are at the imminent risk of being married by either their family members or they're just kidnapped and they're forced into marriage. All of those children are considered to be children in need of care and protection. Then we have a child in conflict with law, which is very simple, which is very straightforward. The definition itself, Section 2, Clause 13 says, a child who's alleged or found to have committed an offense and was below the age of 18. Any offense that we've already seen numerous acts or legislations dealing with the various crimes and the nature of crimes. So, the Juvenile Justice Act also lays down general principles that are to be followed for any child who is being brought before either the Child Welfare Committee, the Juvenile Justice Board, or the Children's Court, or any other related authority. The first thing is presumption of innocence. That is how the Indian criminal justice system works. So that applies to children as well. A child is to be presumed innocent until proven guilty. A child is to be treated with dignity and worth. Just because the child is in need of care and protection, the child shouldn't be, or derogatory words should not be used against the child. The child shouldn't be made to do things that are derogatory to the child's dignity and worth. The next thing is participation. So I would like to understand, what is child participation according to you?
Being ready to learn the things or being aware about things happening.
Okay. So that is good thing. But participation is an extended version of it, not just knowing about it, not just gaining knowledge about it, but also participating in the decision-making process. So it is closely linked to the next principle, that is the best interest of the child. So what is best for the child? It's not just for the adults to decide. It's also for the child to participate and say, this is what I want to do. It is also considering the child's wishes, feelings, and what the child's intent is going forward. So, for example, if a child is in conflict with law, and it is not in the best interest of the child to provide bail, you will see this term a lot in the act. The child can be denied bail if it's not in the best interest of the child. So what would be not in the best interest of the child? Why should a child be kept in an institution and not be let out? Either the child might be vulnerable to getting into association with negative elements of the society. So that would be against the best interest of the child. If the family itself is very abusive to the child, then it would not be in the best interest of the child. So when these decisions are being taken, the child's wishes need to be considered. If the child still wants to go and stay with the family, then that wish should be considered. And then either the child is counseled to see why it's not in the best interest. The child might be put to physical harm, might be undergoing mental turmoil with the family itself. So it's a process that has to take place at that point. It's a family responsibility to take care of the child. Why this is a principle that is highlighted. It's also there in the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. It's the family's responsibility. A child has the right to stay in a family environment. The child should not be institutionalized, kept away from the family. It's not just the physical or the material requirements that is looked after in the family. It's also the care, the protection, and the love that is provided to the family, which is very, very, very crucial for the overall development of the child. And the principle of safety, it's always important to keep the child's safety in mind. Then we have a principle of positive measures. So it should be for the promoting the well-being of the child. So these are the positive measures that these are the positive measures that needs to be kept in mind when the board or the JJB or the CWC are passing orders. It should be non-stigmatizing, like I said, accusatory words. If it's a child in conflict with law, then no authority staff of the childcare institution should use words that are accusatory in nature, because the child is still innocent. Even and at times it so happens that the child, like I mentioned about the riots, the example about riots, the child might just be in the wrong place at the wrong time. So but just calling the child as a rapist or a murderer, that is derogatory, that is accusatory, that should not take place. Non-waiver of rights, no right of the child should be waived at any time. So there is a gamut of rights that a human being has, right? It might be civil or political rights, it's economic, social, and cultural rights. In addition to that, there are certain protection rights also that are given to children, like education, which is very important for survival and development. Education, access to good food, nutritious food. So all of these form the gamut of rights, the basket of rights for a child, and none of these rights should be waived. So but let's come to it, what happens in reality, because this is what is there in the act. This is what should be followed by the authorities. But in practice, we've seen that the situation is completely different. Um, uh, for example, the child is not presumed to be innocent, going by the general principles that are just laid out, which you can read over here. The child is presumed to be guilty. When the child is placed in the observation home itself, and the child is uh, uh, the guards beat up the child, or the staff beat up the child is kept in solitary confinement, the child is made to wash dirty clothes, wash toilets, clean up the premises, and all of that. The hygiene conditions are so bad in these institutions. The child is not even brought in front of the JJB, and this we've seen in Bangalore. The observation home and the JJB sit at the same place. It's in the same premises, but children are not brought and produced before the JJB. JJB is the Juvenile Justice Board, are not brought before the JJB when decisions are being taken, when even hearings are being conducted. So all of these things in practice, we see that it's not taking place. As the child should not be treated with discrimination. There should be equality. Children are always discriminated on the basis of their gender, their age, and the power dynamics that play within the system itself. The child's privacy and confidentiality should be maintained at all times. So if it's a child in need of care and protection, or a child in conflict with law, then the child's identifying details should not be put out. Or if it is put out, then stringent action will be taken against the person who's putting it out. Institutionalization should be a measure of last resort. We will see what are the other options that are available. There's a principle of repatriation and restoration. It's not retribution, but restoration that is to be used. It's the principle of fresh start. So this would mean that if a child is in conflict with law, and even if a child is found guilty, then because of the principle of fresh start, all the cases will be dropped once the child turns 18. And if for that person commits further crimes, then this will not be taken into account. There's the principle of diversion and principle of natural justice as well. So Juvenile Justice Board, I've been speaking about a lot, these committees a lot. So Juvenile Justice Board is a board constituted for children in conflict with law, and the Child Welfare Committee is for children in need of care and protection. So what are the procedures in relation to children in conflict with law? So the process itself, once a child is found to have committed an offense, if a child is alleged to have committed an offense, then the child is apprehended, usually by a police officer. But the child should not be kept in the jail which is there with, or the lockup that we say within the police station. The child should be sent to an observation home that is specifically meant for children who are awaiting to be heard before the Juvenile Justice Board. So once that apprehension takes place, they will be sent to the observation home, and there a special unit is activated. That is a special juvenile police unit. Every police station needs to have a special juvenile police unit, and a child welfare police officer is also there in this unit. Who will be in plain clothes, who will take care of the needs of the child, immediate needs, if the child is in need of medical aid, if the child needs food, if the child needs a set of clothing, if a child needs access to a counselor. All of these needs will be taken care of by the child welfare police officer and the special juvenile police unit, SJPU. So then the child is brought to the observation home, and within 24 hours, the child is to be produced before the Juvenile Justice Board. So if the Juvenile Justice Board is not meeting that particular day, then the child can be taken to the residence of any of the member. The child can be produced there, and till further orders, then the child is brought back to the observation home. If it's a petty or offense or a serious offense, then the child can be granted bail immediately by the Juvenile Justice Board. That is the first right of the child. The child has a right to bail. So if it's in the best interest of the child, then the child can be released on bail. If it's a heinous offense meaning for any offense for which punishment is more than 3 years, No, between more than 7 years. Sorry, for serious offense, it's between 3 and 7 years. For heinous offense, it's more than 7 years. So if that's the case, then a preliminary assessment is done. So this is done. This was implemented in 2015. So the 2000 Act, the Juvenile Justice Act of 2000, did not have this provision of preliminary assessment or transfer system, as we call it. So this was brought in because of the Nirbhaya case. Everyone knows the Nirbhaya case, where it was widely told that there was one child below 18 years in the accused who committed the most heinous of offenses, the gravest of offenses. And there was a huge public outcry then to punish the child, and that the child was let off after 3 years. So this amendment was brought in 2015, called the if a child has committed a heinous offense, then a preliminary assessment is conducted. In the preliminary assessment, there are 4 things that are looked at: the mental capacity of the child, the physical capacity of the child, and if the child knows the consequences of the act that of the crime, what would be the consequences. If the child already knows it, then an assessment needs to be conducted by the JJB. In this, the JJB will usually take help of counselors and psychiatrists to conduct this assessment. If under the preliminary assessment, the JJB feels that this child in the age group of 16 to 18 knew of the consequences, or the child ticks all of those conditions that are already prescribed, then the child is transferred to the children's court to be tried as an adult. If the child is found guilty in the children's court, then the child will be sent to the place of safety or till it completes 18 years, and then the child will be sent to the adult jails. If not, if the child, it's a heinous offense, but still the child doesn't, the JJB still feels that the child did not know the consequences of it, or did not have the mental capacity to it, then did not have the physical capacity to it. The child was coerced by negative elements like gangs or other groups. The child was, for example, the child was used to traffic another minor, but the child did not know the repercussions of it or the long-term consequences of it, and the child was coerced to do it, the child was forced to do it, the child was threatened to do it, then even though it's a heinous offense, then the child will still be treated as a child in conflict with law, and the hearing will continue to take place in the JJB itself. If after the completion of the trial, trial after the evidence and all of the stages are completed, the JJB can pass the following orders. The child can be let off with a warning. The child can be asked to attend group counseling or other similar activities. The child can be asked to do community service. The child or the parent can be asked to pay fine. The child can also be released on probation of good conduct on the term of which is the child has already been in the institution. The child can be sent to a special home for reformative measures to take place, where there's vocational training, there's skill education, there's education being provided, and basically to ensure that the child is sent back into the society with rehabilitated, and or transferred to a children's court based on the preliminary assessment. So procedures in relation to children in need of care and protection. So we have already seen the wide ambit of children who are covered under this group of children in need of care and protection. So what happens over here? The child, a surrendered child, an abandoned child, an orphan child, or a child who is rescued from child labor, from child marriage, from trafficking, from a brothel, or any of those spaces where a child is found to be begging on the streets after being physically maimed. So such children will be brought before the Child Welfare Committee. So the Child Welfare Committee over here, they have certain procedures that they will look into, and they will try to contact the family of the child if the child is, say, a missing person or a kidnapped child or someone. So the child will try to the CWC will try to trace the family and send back, restore to the parents or guardians. But an assessment is done if the child will, to ensure that the child is not put into harm by the parents or guardians. Or it's a declaration that the child is in need of care and protection itself. Then the child is placed in the children's home, like we have observation home to place. We have observation home to place children in conflict with law. We have a children's home to place children in need of care and protection. So the child can be sent there, or in the JJ Act, we have also something called a fit facility. It can either be a government-run home, or it can be a home run by a private person or a non-governmental organization, or a specialized adoption agency. We will look at it later. So it can be placed in any of these authorities, or with a fit person. So if it's a fit facility or a fit person, then they have to compulsorily register. Then we have this foster care system that has been introduced. So the child can also be placed temporarily or for long term in the foster care system. There's an order for sponsorship can be passed. The child can continue to stay in the children's home, and the child can be sponsored for the needs of it, like for education or anything. Sponsorship can be done, or the child can be declared legally free for adoption. When the child is declared legally free for adoption, then the specialized adoption agency steps in, and the process of adoption is taken forward from there. So this is the rehabilitation and social reintegration methods and institutions that are there. So foster care, we've already looked at it, sponsorship as well. So we have something called open shelter. Open shelter is usually a temporary place to place a child if the family environment is not safe for the child, and it only needs to be temporarily. For example, if there's been a death in the family and there's no one to take care of the child immediately because they're dealing with their own thing, or there's been a natural calamity, and the parents are not traceable, then for that duration, the child can be kept in an open shelter till the next decision is taken. Observation homes are children who are awaiting to be tried before the JJB. All of them are kept in observation homes, even though there is a prescribed limit of serious offenses and petty offenses being cleared off within 4 months, but that's still not happening. Then there's something called a special home, where the child is kept for rehabilitative measures. A place of safety is for example, if a person is above 18, but that person had committed a crime when the person was below 18, the child, that person cannot be kept in the observation home along with the other children. So that person will be kept in a place of safety. Or if the age of the child itself is in contest, we don't know if the child is 17, 18, or 19. In such cases, then the child is kept in a place, that person is kept in a place of safety till the further order is passed. Then we have the children's home for children in need of care and protection. We have a fit facility and a fit person who are to register and take care of temporarily provide the need for the needs of the child, and take care that the rights are not violated. So the JJ Act, apart from dealing with children in need of care and protection and children in conflict with law, it also looks at the process of adoption. Before adoption was brought into the juvenile justice system itself, there were personal laws dealing with adoption. And a few religious people belonging to a few religions could not adopt, but all of that has been centralized now through the provisions related to adoption in the JJ Act. So we have a process. Adoption is the process through which the adopted child is permanently separated from the biological parents and becomes a lawful child of the adoptive parents with all rights, privileges, and responsibilities. So who all can be adopted? Orphan children, abandoned children, surrendered children, and those children who are declared to be legally free for adoption. So who can adopt? One more thing to take note of over here is there is the Hindu Adoption and Maintenance Act. So right now in the country, adoption can take place via these two systems. One is as per the process laid down in the JJ Act, and as per the process of the Hindu Adoption and Maintenance Act. So Hindu Adoption and Maintenance Act, there are a few provisions. One thing is only Hindus can adopt, only Hindus can be adopted, and you cannot give up the adoption without the permission of your husband if it's a woman, or of the wife if it's a man, and all of that. But the process under the JJ system, it's more secular in nature. People of any religion can adopt. In the Hindu Adoption and Maintenance Act, even a man could adopt a female child provided the age difference was 21 years. In the JJ Act, a single male cannot adopt a child at all, a girl child at all. So there is eligibility criteria laid down in the JJ Act. The person should be physically fit, should be financially sound, mentally alert, highly motivated. If it's a couple who wish to adopt, then consent of both the spouses are required. A single person or a divorced person can also adopt. This is not possible under HAMA. A single male is not eligible to adopt a girl child. So these are the specialized adoption agencies that we have. We have the State Adoption Resource Agency and the Central Adoption Resource Agency. So the process is pretty much streamlined. There is adoption regulations also, which is placed. So you have to file an application. One has to file an application for adoption if one wishes to adopt a child. And scrutiny is done of the parent itself. A thorough scrutiny is done, and then that parent is linked with a child who's free for adoption, and its continuous monitoring and assessment also takes place up to ensure that the child is well taken care of by the adoptive parents. So apart from the general offenses that are there in the IPC and the other laws that we've seen, there is also a few offenses which are listed down under the JJ system itself. Prohibition of disclosure of identity of children. If that is done, then it's an offense. Cruelty to a child, it can be mental cruelty, physical cruelty, emotional as well. Employment of child for begging, for giving the child intoxicating liquor, narcotic drug, psychotropic substance, etc. Exploitation of a child employee, adopting without following the prescribed procedures if it's done in contradiction to it. Sale and procurement of children for any purpose. Corporal punishment, this has not been identified as a crime under any of the other legislation, but it is an offense under the JJ Act. Use of a child by militant groups or any other adults, kidnapping or abduction, offenses on a child with disability. So these are the few offenses that have been added to the JJ Act in addition to other offenses against children. So these are the key stakeholders that we have. We have the District Child Protection Officer who's appointed at every district. So the District Child Protection Officer is in charge of ensuring that the homes and the childcare institutions, the whole basket of childcare institutions are being run efficiently, and there's no problem in it with regard to their registration, or there are no offenses being committed within the childcare institution. And there is a district child protection unit as well, and all of the staff in it. The child welfare police officer and the special juvenile police unit. We have staff of the various childcare institutions. So we have the observation home, place of safety, special home, children's home. So there are a lot of staff working in this. They are counselors, they are social workers, they are superintendents, they are house mothers, house fathers, they are guards, they are teachers. There are so many staff working in the childcare institution. Then we have the members of the Juvenile Justice Board and the Child Welfare Committee. So in the Juvenile Justice Board, there needs to be a magistrate along with two more members who are either experts in child counseling or in social work, who is a lawyer, similarly to Child Welfare Committee as well. So I had to quickly run through the presentation because I wasn't getting any answers from anyone. So yeah, any questions, anything we can, I think, discuss more on that now. Or is there anything you didn't understand, you want more clarity on?
Ma'am, a small question.
Yes.
Ma'am, now in cases of extremely heinous crimes committed by children, ma'am, like wherein there is more than 10 years of imprisonment involved, in such a situation, ma'am, will there still be a presumption of innocence, ma'am, when it is proven that the child had the maturity to commit that kind of a crime?
Okay, there are two things over here. I don't understand what extremely heinous is, because no act specifies what extremely heinous is. It's either petty, serious, or heinous. So I'm assuming that you mean heinous offenses.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. And how can it be proven that a person is guilty before the trial is even conducted? Is there a method to do that? I'm not aware of any such method, so I'm just asking.
No.
Right. So the child still needs to go through the entire same thing. And this is not, presumption of innocence is not only for children. It's the general rule of law in India. right? A person is presumed to be innocent until proven guilty. That's a criminal law principle that we've adopted. So even if it's happened, there are so many witnesses, it still needs to go through that process of law. A trial still needs to take place. Charge sheets still need to be filed. Correct?
Thank you.
We have another question from
Yeah.
Akansha Datta. It says, why should we call them juveniles in conflict with law instead of juvenile delinquents? It's not like changing the term will change the nature of the crime committed by them.
Yes, juvenile delinquents is a derogatory term. There are a few terms that we don't use anymore, right? So this is also one of the term. And I don't understand changing the term will change the nature of the crime committed by them. There was another thing that I wanted to, in relation to this as well. Can a child in conflict with law also be a child in need of care and protection? Yes, no, don't know anything, please. Yes, right. A child in need of care and protection can, sorry, conflict with law can also be a child in need of care and protection. So why is that? How is that? So why do we, for example, in the Nirbhaya case itself, let's just look at Nirbhaya case. The child who was supposed to have committed the most heinous of the crimes of among the accused people, the child we know was a dropout from school because of corporal punishment meted out by the teacher. We know that there was unemployment. The father was ill, and so he was unemployed, and the mother was finding it difficult to make ends meet. The child was a runaway child who was untraceable. So wasn't he a child in need of care and protection? Didn't the system itself, didn't the society itself push him to become a child in conflict with law? So why are we blaming the child now? Why are we judging him that the nature of the crime that the child committed is heinous and all of that? Because we have seen children who are aggressive, who bully other children, themselves are bullied, right? There are proven studies for this. So a child who is sexually abused will sexually abuse others. Yes, no, don't know.
Psychology is very complex. So when a child is also,
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
am I audible now? Hello?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. So I'm not sure. What I think is the human psychology in itself is very complex. So when it comes to determining a child's psychology, it will be even more complex than a grown-up's thought process.
Yes.
So, but then in case of Nirbhaya, when you are defending, saying he had a lot of family difficulties where the child had undergone a lot of traumatic scenes in his family. How is the society to be blamed for this? I mean,
Yes, that's
I
a very
really
good
disagree
question.
with. Yeah.
Okay, I will give you an answer for that as well. So we know that the child was punished at school, right? So there is something called a school management committee in every school. So that is comprised of parents of the school-going children, and they have powers as per law. As per law, they have powers to bring this to the notice of the authorities to get the teacher sacked. Why, when it is happening in private schools, why is it not happening in government schools? Why have we given up on government schools?
I agree here.
Right? So when I say the society is to blame, it's because of the actions that the society did not take, the actions that the society had to take but failed to take. And this is that is just one example that I'm giving you. We have seen so many other children, numerous children like this, who are pushed into the system because the society has failed to act. How many times do we ourselves stop when a child is begging in the traffic signals, and make sure that the child is put into the authorities? There are authorities, right, for that. That such children are children in need of care and protection. So why are we not just calling that helpline number 1098, child helpline number, where we can even leave anonymous tips? Why are we not doing that? Is there something holding us back other than just picking up a phone and doing calling someone up? And it's a toll-free number. You're not even going to be charged for it. So what is stopping us from doing it? Or this is the best thing. 1098 is the easiest way for anyone in the society to just, call up and say, okay, if a child is domestic help, being abused by the family employing the child, because 16 to 8, above 14 children can be employed as domestic helps. So if it's happening in our vicinity, why are we not just picking up the phone and telling it? If we see children out there in mechanic shops, in Bangalore, we see so many such children. Why are we not just picking up the phone and making that first call? Why are we not doing that attempt? Isn't it a failure of us as a society?
But ma'am, what if, see here, the problem in our country is that we're not even stopping a child who's really in need of finances. So I don't know, there is a prohibition on the child labor, but at times, when the family itself is not able to raise them well or provide with the necessities, what would the child do? Either he becomes a criminal or he has to, help himself survive. So
again, I feel, see, it's no point just blaming the government for everything, right? As society, we also have a role to play, a very effective and a very crucial role to play. Why is it that, say, the foster care system works so well in the United States, but it is not working here at all?
agreed, ma'am.
Right? So I'm not saying that you need to help every child out there, but how many children have we helped? In, say, our 20 years, 30 years of our lives, have we helped at least one child? I'm not saying you need to go physically or give your time, energy, money. I'm not telling any of that. So what is stopping us then? If there's a mental block, shouldn't we get over that mental block? Because that mental block is affecting children. Because I disagree with children are the citizens of tomorrow. Children are citizens today. They have rights today. Their rights are being violated today. So why are we not taking actions? Why are we waiting for them to become adults, to become eligible to vote, and then we are identifying their rights? Why is that taking place? So these are just, I know these are very difficult questions, but it's food for thought, right? I think we can start thinking at least in this direction, if not do at least. There are 125 of us, 26 of us here today. If 126 of us had called one when we'd seen, 126 children would be saved today, would be out of the streets, would be out from harm, from being abused. So the law is very clear, right? This will be provided. But why do we always wait for the government to do something? Why do we ourselves not do anything? Lack of awareness could be a reason. Yes. It is so again, as law students, I would urge you, because you can act as paralegal volunteers in this country, right? You do not have to represent anyone right now. You can do that after your graduation. But why can't you create awareness in your own areas? You are well equipped. You know the law. You know the society. Lawyers are social scientists, right? So why are we not doing it? Just 10 people in the evening, half an hour, sit with them, talk to them. See, not everything has to be monetary. You cannot look at monetary gain from everything. So, but why are we not doing this? As a society, are we not contributing to it? So which country has the best juvenile system? Every system has its flaws. And I'm not going to compare India with the Western countries. I'm only going to compare it with the South Asian countries. And so far, what we've seen, the system in Sri Lanka is very good. The juvenile justice system in Sri Lanka is very good. Yeah, if there are no other questions or comments or
Yeah,
thoughts.
ma'am, what happens once we call 1098?
Yeah, once you call 1098, you can just place, if you've just seen, for example, you've seen, you're in a traffic signal, you've seen a child begging over there, and the child you can see is physically maimed. You can call 1098 and say, in this signal, there is this child. You can give a physical description of the child. And 1098 is run by the civil society right now. It's not run by the police itself. So they will get in touch with the police and a rescue mission takes place. The child is picked up from the street and the child is produced before the child welfare committee. Right? And then the process takes place. This is just an example of a child you found in a traffic signal. I'm not looking at every other example right here. Yeah.